Joining me now is Mr. Andrew Scheer. He's the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, and he's calling on our government to step up and potentially bring in the WTO regarding this canola being stuck and not heading into China. Welcome here, Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
All right, so let's just dive in, because this has been several months in the works. We've got stalled canola shipments. We've got two major companies that are missing out on an export permit. We're saying that it's a technical issue, but we can't get confirmation. And you are calling on the WTO to step in. Tell me more about that.
Well, first of all, I highlighted today that Justin Trudeau's weak leadership, lack of action, and poor judgment are costing Canadians, and canola producers especially are paying for his mistakes. So first of all, we have had a vacant position in China. We have not had an ambassador in China since John McCallum was fired. That means that we don't have a high-ranking representative that can open the door to get into some of these meetings. In fact, the delegation that the government was hoping to send of technical experts to address these issues haven't even been granted a meeting. And we know that trade complaints at the WTO take a long time. These are not quick fixes. So that's even more reason why they should be started immediately. There's not a lot of optimism right now that we will be able to get these types of meetings to address these technical concerns. So all the more reason to start a WTO process now, so that we're not starting this a year from now.
On the issue of the WTO process, now I have heard rumblings of potentially an issue with having judges that could potentially step in on this case. Have you heard anything along those lines?
Well, I haven't heard specifics as it relates to that. I did have a meeting with the Canola Council today, and they are very concerned about what's happening. There are other reports. Not only have two major Canadian exporters been denied access to the market in China, but now it's being said that there are no buyers from anyone in Canada right now. So nothing is moving into Canada. Again, all the more reason why we need quick action on this.
Now, as you said, there certainly has been discussion about sending some ranking officials to China to meet there, but that they were awaiting visas. Do you have any insight into perhaps where that stands or why that might be a holdup?
Well, what we've heard is that they have not even been told whether or not a meeting will be granted, and that's really the holdup, that the Chinese government hasn't even responded to the request. And I think we have to make sure that we understand that this is not just about canola. Obviously, that's the issue that we're talking about. It's a position of weakness that Justin Trudeau has put Canada in. We've got two Canadian citizens being detained unjustly by the Chinese government. We've seen this move now on canola, and Mr. Trudeau has literally done nothing. And I believe it's time to stand up to China. We know that this isn't based on science. We know that this isn't based on legitimate complaints. The Chinese government is using this as leverage on Canada, and I think Canadians deserve Prime Minister that will stand up for our country. And that's why I've gone further beyond the technical issues that I addressed today about appointing an ambassador, increasing the advance payment program limit, and launching a WTO complaint. I also announced that as Prime Minister, I will pull Canadian funding of the Asian Infrastructure Bank. This Liberal government, Justin Trudeau, decided to spend $256 million of taxpayers' money in an Asian infrastructure bank that builds roads and bridges in other countries to help China expand its influence in the region. I don't believe that was a good decision at the best of times, and now that we've got this deteriorating relationship with China, now is the time to send that signal and pull that money.
All right. Now, you did mention that meeting with the Canola Council, there was some discussion about potentially some other crops facing maybe some issues heading into China. Can you confirm if pulses or soybeans or any other crop types are facing roadblocks into China right now?
Right. So what I heard today and what I have heard from others is some anecdotal reports of extra barriers to get access into China. So, for example, we're being told that some shipments will be subjected to extra inspections, that on an ad hoc basis, some shipments of other commodities are being delayed or in some cases turned back. So we're trying to quantify that and get some hard evidence of that. But one thing is clear. I do understand, and I am very sensitive to the concern that many in the canola industry have, and indeed the agricultural community in general, that there is a strong desire not to have this affect other commodities. And I understand that. My point, though, is that the do-nothing approach that Trudeau has adopted so far has led us to this situation. And I think that it's time that we stand up to the government in China, stand up for ourselves. You can't let a government like China steamroll over our country. And by doing nothing, by trying to send a delegation to talk technical terms when we know it's not based on science, I don't believe is a position of strength. I think doing something like pulling our funding from the Asian Infrastructure Bank would show the government in China that there are consequences. We shouldn't be spending that money anyway. So now would be the time to send that signal.
All right. And finally, you did mention, of course, the advance payments program. We are heading into the seeding season. Some farmers are already rolling out west. Canola should be going in the ground shortly if it's not started already. We haven't necessarily heard beyond a acknowledgement of what's being called for from Saskatchewan's premier about the advance payments program. Do you support the changes that have been put forward there? And any comment on why we haven't necessarily seen anything on that file?
Yes. So absolutely, I support that request, and that was part of my announcement today. I was calling on the government to increase the cap and the interest-free portion of the advanced payment program. This, to me, should be relatively straightforward. I don't know why this government hasn't done it so far. I can only suggest that, for the past 3 months, Justin Trudeau has been in complete damage control mode, and he's only been focused on saving his own job. They've been completely incapable of handling other files, and I believe that now canola producers are being affected by that, because this is the type of thing that we don't have to depend on another country for. We don't have to wait for a response from China. We can just say, we're going to stand up for producers, we're going to make this change. So absolutely, I support doing it. I know a lot of my friends are hitting the fields soon if they haven't already, and they need to know, will they have the cash flow to get them through the season? And at the end of the day, this is not a big ticket cost item for the government. It should be a no-brainer. It's frustrating to me that it hasn't happened, but we're going to keep up the pressure to make sure that it does.
All right, Mr. Scheer, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.